Hello, welcome back to the Villa View. It's time for a match preview as Aston Villa Football Club take on Nottingham Forest this weekend at Villa Park. Yet another 3 p.m. kickoff. We are being spoilt recently. I'm joined by Sky Sports News' Dave Reed, Villa fan as well. Of course, Dave, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited for this game this weekend. It's going to be great.
Yeah, we're just on such a good run at the moment that you do look forward to every single game. Nottingham Forest aren't good travellers. They've only won once away from home all season, and that was against Southampton where they won 1-0. So they're not the best of runs either. You were telling me before we came on that, was it 8 games they've gone now
Yeah,
without
that's
a
right.
win? So they're
Yeah,
not
that's
in a
right.
good place, are they, Forest, at the moment? But Steve Cooper maintains probably 95% of the fan base's support, and more crucially at the moment, the owner's support as well.
Yeah, but for how long? I guess from Steve Cooper's point of view, there was a statement released, wasn't there, the other day, maybe Tuesday, from the owner saying it might have been yesterday actually. My days,
yesterday, I think.
my days
It's
are
Easter.
just all in one. Saying that results needed to improve, performances needed to improve immediately. So yes, Steve Cooper's going to be in charge for this game, and he's been given the backing for this game. But how long that will continue if Aston Villa get a convincing result on Saturday, you wonder how long Steve Cooper will be in a job for.
Do you think now, at this point now, he's ridden a couple of storms out? If they were going to sack him, you feel like they kind of would have done it by now? I mean, I was down at Forest last week, and I've got to say, he seemed very, very relaxed when I spoke to him. He didn't seem under pressure. They're about where you'd probably expect them to be. They're about where he probably expected them to be as well. The fans aren't calling for his head. I think Forest lose more by getting rid of him, especially now. I think he's done such a good job. They were obviously in the doldrums when he took over, and he's taken them to places they never thought they'd be at this time of year now. They'd have never said this, well, probably 18 months ago, they're going to be in the Premier League. They're in touch with everyone. I just don't see what they'd gain by sacking him now. And he's a good manager as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've been in this position before, haven't they? Earlier in the season, there were stories around him getting sacked, and then he ended up signing a new contract, didn't he? So, and you're right, the fan base have a major say in terms of Cooper's future, really, because you'd have thought if the fans had turned on him, Cooper would have gone a long time ago. The fact that the fans are still there with him means that he's got that backing from them, and perhaps that means that the owner has kind of been a little bit reluctant to push the button on Steve Cooper because the fans have been with him. And I get the whole argument that, they were ahead of schedule coming up. But I think from the owner's perspective, he'll see all the amount of money that they've spent on players, and he'll be looking for a return on that investment. They won't want to be going down. And, we don't really know the ins and outs of the contract situation with the players that they have signed at Nottingham Forest. But you would have thought they would have thought ahead and thought about reduction in wages. But there'll be players there on big money, and the owner will want a return on that money. So he'll be wanting them to stay up. And if he thinks that he can go out and get another manager to get a bounce for the final 8-9 games of the season, then he's the type of owner that you would expect to want to do that, and perhaps it means the end for Steve Cooper.
Yeah, they're a sensible bunch of fans, Nottingham Forest. I've always thought that they're a good club, been away from the Premier League for so long. But I'd almost say, and we spoke about this on the transfer shows in August and probably again in January. Such a difficult job to try and amalgamate all those players together and try and make a functioning team. And for points during the season, particularly when you think about, I think, just before the World Cup break and just after the World Cup break, Steve Cooper did that, and they started to have some momentum. I think a few weeks ago they were 12th, 13th. Again in January, they brought in more players, didn't necessarily need all the players that they brought in, but I just feel like that's disrupted them again a little bit. But I do think towards the back end of the season, Cooper will settle on a team. He seems to have settled on a front three at the moment in Dennis Johnson and Gibbs White. I think he'll find his team. I do think he'll probably end up keeping them up because their home form is excellent. But away from home, Dave, with our Villa hats on, Villa have got to take advantage of how useless they are away from the City ground, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think, given their away form, we know that they're going to sit off us. They're going to let us have the ball. They're going to try and cram that middle of the park, a little bit like what Leicester did the other night with bringing in Nampalys Mendy into that midfield. They tried to kind of condense the middle of the park to stop us playing through them. You'd think that Nottingham Forest would do the same. Again, they'll probably go 4 at the back again. I know they've kind of switched between formations this season, but he seems to have settled on 4 at the back and Freuler in midfield. He might drop in between the centre-backs at times as well to make it a 3 when they've got the ball. But I can see us dominating the ball, and it'll be about us trying to break them down, really. And I think it might follow a same sort of pattern as what the Bournemouth game at home was, where, they'll be very much trying to play on the counter-attack. They've got the weapons to hurt us on the counter-attack. When you look at Gibbs-White, when you look at Dennis, if he's fit, when you look at Brennan Johnson as well. So they'll be trying to get us on the counter-attack and on transitions. And don't forget, we beat Bournemouth, but they created some chances, and it was only maybe poor finishing and good goalkeeping that stopped them from at least scoring one on that afternoon. So as much as we're going into this thinking, we should turn these over, you've got to have a little bit in the back of your mind to say they've got some players that can hurt us.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of Forest this season, and transition is definitely the way that they can hurt Villa. I think from Villa's point of view, I'm not sure their back four is Premier League standard. Really, I think that's the bit of the side that's really letting them down. You look at Johnson's goal return; it's pretty good for the level that they're playing at or where they are in the league. I think Gibbs-White, although his productivity may not seem great, I think he's such a great footballer and he's such a dangerous player. So good at carrying the ball. And Dennis has got previous against Villa as well. I think he scored every time he's played against Villa in the Premier League. Emmanuel Dennis. I mean, I'm spoiling our next show, the Stasso show, but I'm pretty sure he scored in every game against us, Dennis. So, they have got some players that can hurt us. But the bit that buoys me is that I just think Villa's midfield, even without Kamara, McGinn and Louise are playing so well at the moment that they can perhaps stop those transitions.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where Ramsey plays, because he played on the right-hand side against Leicester. Maybe that was to try and help out Ashley Young against Harvey Barnes. You wonder whether Ramsey might switch back over to the left-hand side on Saturday and try and help out Moreno with Brennan Johnson, because you feel like Johnson's going to remain quite high on that right-hand side and wait and perhaps let Alex Moreno run beyond him and not do that much tracking back for him. So you would kind of think that Brennan Johnson might just hang on that last line on the right-hand side, and we might need Ramsey on that left-hand side to help cover when Moreno's bombing forward. So that's one decision that I think will be intriguing to see whereabouts Ramsey plays. You're right. I mean, I think Morgan Gibbs-White is a brilliant player. I know there was lots of chat, and we spoke as well about the amount of money that Forest paid for him. But I really think he's a great footballer, and he's got a high ceiling. Morgan Gibbs-White, I think out of the traditional Big Six, I was reading today, of the other 14 clubs, I think he's created the most chances of any player among the other 14 clubs. And at the moment, he's kind of playing in that false nine position where he'll start high and then drop deep. And then the runners in behind of Dennis, of Brennan Johnson, cause the damage, and he kind of drops in and links the play in midfield. But also he's got the ability to turn and run at you as well. So I really rate Morgan Gibbs-White. I think he's a great player.
Yeah, he was really good last week. I watched their game against Wolves last week, and they were really, really unlucky not to come away with 3 points. I thought they were by far the better team in that game, but that defence, it can always be got at, and they gave up an opportunity, and Wolves punished them. But Johnson's goal came from kind of hanging on the right on the right hand side. They've got the young Brazilian lad in midfield whose name's completely gone from my head.
Danilo, was it?
Danilo, he was involved in the goal as well. He looks like he's a good find. He looks like he'll be a good player in years to come. Shelby's the one who I sometimes watch. I just watched the highlights of the game against Leeds before I came in. I just feel he hasn't got the legs in midfield to play in the Premier League anymore, and he's someone that perhaps again Villa can get around and press and put under pressure, because there's a lot of things that Villa are doing really well at the moment. I don't know where you sat with Ollie Watkins maybe this time last year at the start of the season, but you wouldn't bet against him scoring again this week, would you? Because he's just on absolute fire at the moment. All kinds of different finishes as well. He's scoring with his head, his right foot, his left foot. His confidence must be absolutely through the roof, and it's great to see. Have you always been a fan of Ollie Watkins?
Yes, although I must admit that the goal scoring previous to this run did worry me a little bit. And I think that's why, there was lots of talk around us going out and getting a number 9 or, someone who can challenge Ollie Watkins in the January window. Obviously, we went for someone at the other kind of stage of their career in Duran. So, yeah, it did worry me, Ollie Watkins' goal scoring record. But it's funny how things turn, isn't it? He went down, didn't he, with a little injury against Leicester.
I was worried.
My heart was in my mouth thinking, don't do this to us, not now, not while we're on this run, not while things are going so well. But that's, I guess, one of Ollie Watkins' plus points, that he is very durable. He'll play a lot of minutes for you, and he doesn't get injured that often.
Dave, don't say it.
Anecdotally,
Don't
off the
do
top
it.
of my head,
Don't do it.
I know. But the really, and he offers a lot of flexibility. He's talked about changing his game slightly under Unai Emery, not perhaps coming deep and trying to work the channels or things like that. Just kind of being more of a box striker. So he offers a bit more flexibility, that he can do the box striker, and he can also offer the flexibility by coming wide and helping out on the left-hand side, or needed to drop deep and try and link the play a little bit. So he offers us a lot, and that's why I really like him. You don't have to have a striker that's up there scoring you 20 goals a season when you've got other players chipping in with goals. So if he does end this scoring run at some point, you would like to think that players around him will be ready and able to step up and chip in with goals to help him out.
Well, one of those players that did chip in with a goal in midweek was Bertrand Traore. Probably, again, thought we'd seen the last of Bertrand Traore, but he pops up with an absolute worldie near the end of the game. Absolute scenes in the away end. I'm not sure he comes in and starts. I think he might be used as an impact sub again. What do you think?
Yeah, you feel like, I can understand why people will be saying, well, you've got to start him, particularly because Leon Bailey hasn't been pulling up any trees. And given the emotion of what happened the other night, you can understand why some Villa fans might be saying that you've got to start him. And he will be full of confidence, no doubt about that. But I think, that would be the emotional decision, perhaps, to start him on Saturday. And I think the more sensible choice, which, Unai Emery seems to make the right choice, whatever he does at the moment. I think the right choice for him probably will be to continue with Leon Bailey up front, who can drift wide and take on players. I do think they're kind of, there's been a few comparisons between Bailey and Traore. I think they are slightly different. In terms of Bailey, someone who can take the ball and run at defenders and probably go by them, whereas Traore is a little bit more kind of drop of the shoulder, feints, working himself half a yard type of player. But there's no doubt. I loved it at the end, the game against Leicester. Not obviously, the goal was amazing, but the scenes afterwards at full time, the fans in the corner, the players going over, not just the players that were on the pitch as well. It was the subs was there. I saw Diego Carlos absolutely loving life in the corner there, singing along to all the songs, and that just highlighted to me and everyone really the togetherness that's within that squad at the moment. And obviously Bertrand Traore is a well-liked player within that squad, and he's got a lot of friends in there, and you would think that it probably would have not only hurt him but hurt some of the other players in the squad, the way that he was made to train with the under-23s and then kind of let go on loan when we got rid of most of our wire players last summer. So you can obviously see the impact that he's had coming back in January. He's well liked amongst the squad, but I can see him getting more minutes, maybe not, not just a cameo in the final 10 minutes, see how things go during the game. And a lot depends on what's going on in the game, but you can see him coming on, with maybe giving him half an hour or 35 minutes, something like that, in the second half on Saturday.
Yeah, I saw some footage earlier, and actually Leon Bailey's one of the ones that looks really delighted for him. And you might think, oh, he's going to come and take my place. But I think that shows the team spirit amongst the group at the moment. Bailey was one of the ones that looked absolutely delighted for Bertrand Traore. I saw him commenting on his Instagram post as well. You don't fake stuff like that, so it's good to see, because Bailey isn't having the best of time at the moment. Might be worried about his players, but he's obviously delighted for someone who, by all accounts, it doesn't sound like he was treated very well under the previous regime at all. Do you think having the small squad is helping us at the moment? Because I've seen a few people write this on social media. It's kind of keeping everyone involved, isn't it? You've seen Chambers come on in the last few games, and if you're part of that the match day squad at the moment, you are still getting minutes and you're still getting a chance to contribute. Yeah,
it's polar opposites, really, isn't it? When you look at Nottingham Forest squad, who have probably got 25, 30 senior players, and then you look at us, who we've got 2 keepers on the bench most weeks at the moment.
Sometimes 8 subs as well.
Yeah, and that too. So I think it is helping. I think it's fostering that togetherness. And I think that's been the message really since Unai Emery came in. And I've been thinking about this more recently, the fact, the messaging that's coming out of the squad over Unai Emery's time in charge. It's all been very aligned. All the players in post-match interviews have been saying we need the fans to believe in the style of football that we're trying to play. This is a work in progress. We need the fans on side. And Unai Emery, every interview, he's thanking the supporters. He's talking about how well the club is being supported off the pitch. So all of those messages are aligned, and it's built this kind of tight knit squad, I feel. And also on that front, it's one of the things I'm kind of thankful for at the moment is that Unai Emery came in during mid-season. If we'd have had him come in a summer campaign or during a summer window, we would have had to go through this process at the start of a season, go through the process of supporters getting used to playing out from the back, supporters getting used to the different style of football and the patience of play. And it maybe wouldn't have had, it would have taken us a few weeks or maybe even a couple of months to get going in a new season under Unai Emery. The fact that he's come in now, last year, we've had this bit of kind of getting to know each other period, really. It really excites me for next season because everybody's going to be on the same page. Everybody will know what to expect. So I feel like it was brilliant to have Unai Emery come in during mid-season, to have this time to get to know the players, get to know which players he can rely on, which players are able to take instructions, which players are able to follow his tactics. And I think, it really encourages us for next season, because if it had come in and things hadn't have gone so well, we'd have probably had to say goodbye to 3 or 4 players, maybe even senior big name players in that squad. The fact that they've all taken to him and they've all bought into the idea, you feel like that's cemented their place in the squad for next season and seasons beyond as well.
Yeah, he's improved players that were already there. I mean, except for Moreno, that starting 11 against Leicester, they were all here when Gerrard walked through the door, let alone when Emery walked through the door. And he has improved players like Watkins, Konsa, Mings, McGinn, players who've come under fire by the fan base in recent months. They all look better players than they ever have done for Aston Villa. In fairness, so it's just great to see. I think you raise a valid point that we've kind of got through the teething problems now, and you kind of in a way would have written off this season, but we can't write off, Dave, because we're in the hunt for Europe.
I know, which sounds crazy to say. I mean, if Aston Villa get European football next season, I mean, Arsenal fans will say it'll be Arteta if they win the league. Brighton fans will say it's De Zerbi. Newcastle fans will say it's Eddie Howe for getting them in the Champions League. But honestly, I think Unai Emery has to be in the conversation for Manager of the Year if Aston Villa get a European place, because that squad, that team, was sleepwalking towards a relegation battle earlier this season, and to turn 100%. It round and to improve those players the way he has and to get the performances out of them, it's an unbelievable turnaround. It's an incredible turnaround. And you're right, he's improved so many of those players. And, that's one of the things that I loved when Dean Smith was in charge, the fact that he coached players and players improved under him as a head coach. And a lot of those players that improved ended up going backwards over the last year. And the fact that they're getting back to those levels, and players like Ezri Konsa, who, I had second thoughts over, because you wondered whether he'd be able to reach a high enough level to get where Aston Villa want to go to. Would he be left behind in Aston Villa's improvement? The fact that he is, one of the bedrocks of that team again, alongside Tyrone Mings, it's just brilliant. And it's you don't like to put everything on the manager, but he's obviously had a lot to do with it, and you have to give him a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, they've all bought into it. The players deserve a lot of credit for how they've bought into it as well. I think they'd have known if they don't, they'll be out the door. But everyone at the moment is playing at the top of their game to the best of their ability, and everyone's working hard as well. You never say this team doesn't work hard. So everything we're doing at the moment seems to be working, and they must have so much belief in Emery now. You look at the subs in the last 2 games. They've changed the course of the game. The substitutes he's made against Chelsea and the substitutes he's made against Leicester, one of them obviously coming on and scoring the winner. Everything he tells you to do, or everything that he does at the moment, you must just believe as a player that it's going to work. So, we're in a really, really good place. And if we get 3 points against Forest on Saturday, 9 points in a week, it literally doesn't get better than that. And we'll keep ourselves in and around the top 6, which at this stage of the season, I did not think I'd be talking about things like that at all. Let's finish with a score prediction then, Dave Reid. What is your score prediction?
I'm going to go 2-1 Villa. I think Watkins is going to continue his scoring run. I just fancy him to get at, if it's Felipe, Niakate at centre-back, you feel like you can get at them. And particularly, if Emmanuel Dennis doesn't make it for Forest this weekend, they might have to reshuffle up front as well, whether a Wunyi come up come into the team to lead the line, and it might shift Morgan Gibbs-White out wide when I think he's probably better in a central area. So interesting on that front. But I'm going to go 2-1 Villa. You can't come on here and say that we're not going to win a game at the moment, because you go into every game thinking we're going to win.
No, I think 2-1 as well. I've done another podcast this morning and I said 2-1 to Villa as well. If Awoniyi does come in, just feel like he's a similar type of striker to Solanke. And Solanke did cause constant problems at times in that Bournemouth game. I don't think that Bournemouth game was as comfortable as people said it was. So I think he's a good player, Awoniyi, actually. Again, the few times I've seen him this season, he's impressed me. Been struggling with injury, but yeah, that's one to watch out for. I think that's a potential one that could hurt Villa. Dave Reid, thank you ever so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Come on the channel anytime, always welcome. Subscriber numbers have gone up unbelievably. I think the fact that Villa won the way they did the other night, we did a show straight after, has really done wonders for us as well. So thanks for all the support on the channel at the moment. Do make sure you subscribe with your post notifications on. Give the video a like and give the video a comment as well if you have enjoyed it. The Stato preview will be out at some point as well, so watch out for that. Again, thank you to Dave Reid and